Welcome back to Ways to Love Your Money. I'm Elizabeth Dawson, and today I'm going to have my co-host here, Miss Katie Steck, and we're going to talk about what the 30-something group, that generation, what their goals are, what they're thinking about, what's important to them. I want to thank all of our listeners and people watching our show as well. And, please give us some comments or questions and down below, and we can basically have those on our next show, and we'll answer them for you. All right, well, we have Katie here. Katie's with me. She's my cohort in everything that I do pretty much here at the practice. And, we're having her part of the show more and more, and I think it's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Well, I know when we were just talking offline, you were saying that you really wanted to talk about what your generation, the 30-something group, what their goals are, because they're different than the 40-something, the 50-something, or the 60-something, but maybe to kind of just engage with them. What's on their mind? What are they thinking about?
I think it's kind of an interesting time for people my age right now because I think everybody's in such different places. I've got friends I went to college with who are traveling abroad all the time. They're teaching out of the country, have obviously very different goals than me, who bought my first home not a couple of years ago, thinking about what that next step is. I've got people who are buying their second, more permanent home, starting families, thinking a lot more long term. So I think when it comes to just people our age, that's why what we do is so goal based, right? Because everybody's goals are so different, and I think that's very true of people my age right now.
Well, and Katie, you're originally from Wisconsin, so you've got those Midwest values, and I think that maybe is there a connection to certain goal paths that people have? Maybe we're from the Midwest versus, let's say, California. Do you see kind of a segregation in that?
I definitely do. I mean, I see it everywhere, but I do think there's a lot more people my age in the Midwest who are really at that point where they're settling down. They're starting families. They've been married for a few years. They're looking at buying that long-term permanent home. Maybe they bought a starter home already, or maybe they're just jumping into their first home, but it's a more permanent situation for them. But at the same time, I think that I have a handful of people I know who are still in that travel, just thinking about myself, but obviously they have goals too. They're just different and changing all the time. But I definitely see that more long-term settling down a little bit more in the Midwest than you see out here. I think you have a lot of people. It probably comes from everything just being so expensive
Well,
out here that people are definitely still more in that, what do I even want to do for a living for the rest of my life? I think I see more out here.
Well, I think even prior to the shutdown in March, right, I think that we were talking to some people that were younger, and it was all about the experience, right? And right now you can't really have that total experience. I just want to kind of drill it down a little bit more on one thing that you had said, where they're maybe starting to transition from being kind of selfish to being more, more outgoing and thinking about others because it's a transition in their life.
Long-term thinking.
More long-term thinking.
Who do I want to be with? Where do I want to be? Am I ready to plan for a family and what that looks like? Yeah, for sure.
So would you say like the mix of people that it's all across the board, or there's still some that are a little bit more
definitely
structured?
I know somebody who has been teaching English as a second language and all over the world, and I know he just came back to the U.S. as a little bit more permanent situation for him, probably due to COVID and not being able to do what he was doing.
Sure.
But certainly my age and not looking to settle down, just what does it look like right now for him?
Do you think COVID's actually getting people to think differently now about what their real important things on their mind, what's close to their heart, like you're saying, a little bit more long-term, maybe maturing people a little bit more?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
I think that it's kind of made people think more about what they've been doing might be fun, but is it sustainable? And maybe having to think a little bit more about what can I do to make sure that I'm okay all the time, not just while I have a job, or what happens if I don't have a job.
Do you see like the 30-something group? I mean, we had a lady on the show, which was wonderful, April House, and she was saying, gosh, what I figured out about my relationship with money was, in my 30s, I was paying for my 20s. And are you seeing that amongst the 30-something generation still right now, or Do you see kind of like that separation? She was talking about credit cards and her relationship with money, and she had no perception of money, and so she's like, yes, I had nothing to show for in my 30s because of all the things I did in my 20s. I mean, you're a totally different person. That's why that's not you, but it's kind of interesting to hear that.
Yeah, you had mentioned that to me before, and I do think that's funny. I think that for people my age, I think it's probably true, but probably haven't realized it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just starting to get into our 30s, right?
Yeah.
So,
so what do you
more
think?
And more of that will come.
Yeah. What do you think the 30-something group wants? What do you think they want?
I think that's what's so hard is that I think everybody wants something different.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that as many people my age want to have kids necessarily or right away. Might not be even on their mind yet. But then there are some that are and having kids, second kids, third kids already, and definitely thinking paying for college and those kinds of things starting to come on their mind. So I think that's what's so different about being like right kind of in between.
Yeah.
Is that there isn't a one size fits all or anything like that.
It was kind of funny because when I first came into this financial services industry, I mean, I was 28, 29 years of age, and I mean, I'd been saving for retirement because someone told me I had to. I didn't know anything about it, but when I was in my 30s, I wasn't thinking about retirement. Do you think that the demographic of the 30-year-old something, do you think they're thinking about retirement yet?
I think they're thinking I should save for retirement, but no clear picture. Because, I mean, even when I think about it, it's so far out in the distance. Will it even happen? I think there's a lot more of that immediate gratification that it's so far away. Why plan?
Why plan
everything?
for it now?
Not don't plan for it, but not going to put everything there when there's so much time in between. And spending money now and doing things now and traveling and seeing the world. I think there's a lot more people my age now that are like, I don't want to wait until retirement to do those things because who knows when that could be.
Well, I mean, quality of life, I think, has a big factor in everything that we choose to do. And maybe we saw our parents, they didn't travel because they were sacrificing themselves for us, right?
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think even just the relationship with money is so different today than it was when I was 30, 20 years ago, versus even when I was 40. But I think that when you start to creep into your 40s, all of a sudden you kind of wake up and go, oh no, oh crap, I got to do something, and gosh, how many times do we hear this, that people say to us, where were you 10 years ago? Well, we were right here. Yeah. You just weren't ready for us yet. And that's probably an honest statement, right?
Very much. Yeah.
Just not. They weren't ready yet.
Yeah. I think that there's no moment when it's time to start planning, but you just have to be committed and want to really accomplish whatever those goals are.
Yeah. Well, and the millennial group is getting older now, right? They're starting to brush up against 40s, and pretty much our generation is going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with millennials? Well, millennials are our generation from 15 years ago, and it's kind of interesting because do you think that people are more business owner minded? Do you think that they're thinking about real estate? Do you think that they're thinking about having liquidity? Are they thinking about are they even thinking about an emergency fund? Or are they living a credit card life? What do you think?
I have a feeling that they're living a credit card life, but I do see more and more people my age and people I see on social media trying to do the business owner thing. Like they want to have that flexible schedule to do what they want when they want to do it, but that comes with a lot of risk. And but I do see that. I see that more and more. Every time I'm on social media, somebody pushing their new business.
So what kind of businesses are you seeing from the younger generation?
Coaching businesses.
A lot of coaching,
health coaching, personal growth coaching. I see a lot of that.
Well, and we've been doing financial coaching here for so long. Now we're starting to go through the money coaching process. But it's the relationship with money, right? It's like, how detailed do we want to be? How vulnerable do we want to get? And that's kind of difficult, Because I think that when we are young, we're thinking, gosh, I'm just making money. I can go spend it on whatever I want.
Right.
Well, sure you can. But I remember that first realization, I think I was in my early 30s, where I got a copy of my Social Security statement. And I encourage everyone to do this. get a copy of your Social Security statement and look at all the earnings you ever made for all those years that you were working. I started working when I was 12 years old. I mean, I don't know how that happened. You can't do that today, but I was 12 years old starting to work. And I literally had on each of these years, I'm like, oh, that's what my earnings say. That's what oh my God, where is it? I didn't have a penny to show for it. And it started to kind of wake up my senses to that. And I think that when you get to your mid-30s, going towards your late 30s, if not close to your early 40s, you start to kind of become more aware. And, there's coaching for everything, like you just said. I mean, we have people that are in real estate coaching, marketing coaching. I mean, you name it, it's out there.
Yeah.
But is it making a difference in their world? It's only what you put into it that'll make it, right? So it's very interesting because mom and dad aren't really there to take care of us anymore when we're in our 30s, right? And I mean, is there still some perception that mom and dad are there with some of your friends and things like that you know?
Not as much. Not as much at this point. I mean, I do have a friend who just moved back in with his parents, with their whole family, but with very specific goals to buy a home.
Okay.
So I think that's a little different than mom
That's
and dad
a little difficult.
taking care.
I have my 22-year-old son right now and his girlfriend and my stepdaughter and everybody's in the house and we got 3 dogs and there's 5 of us and it's like, gosh, the house is big, but it could be bigger. It's just, that's hard. That's hard.
But they have very specific goals and a very specific timeline, so I'm really proud of them for making that decision because that's a tough one.
Well, what do you think some of these goals are? What do you think the average goals are for the 30-something group, 30 to 40? Are they different between 30 and 35 than 35 to 40? Are they different?
Yes, I think so. My in-laws are a little older than me. They have kids. They're in the later 30s, 40s, and definitely more settled, more consistent lifestyle. Kids in school, businesses, just kind of going. Whereas I think people my age are still in that trying to feel more secure in what they're doing. But like I said, buying a home, I think is always the first step of saying I'm ready to settle down and be somewhere a little more permanent.
Yeah. You and I always talk about the home, the first purchase of a home or even a second purchase of a home. It's the biggest financial decision you're going to make.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to go it alone? Do you want to do it how mom and dad did it? They're all going to have different opinions. Or is it better to talk to a financial advisor of some kind to talk about that, to make sure that all your ducks are lined up in a row? Do you think that they're open to having those conversations now?
I think they are. I do. I think there are still a lot of people my age who do go to mom and dad as the experts when looking for advice, but I do think they're getting to a point where they're ready. They feel like they have something to show for the work they've been doing and are ready to start
That's
talking
great.
to a professional.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but yeah.
Well, what else would you like to talk about the 30-something, generation? What would you give the listeners that are listening or watching the show? What would be some first steps that you would recommend? To kind of get more awareness and more conscious of, they have, the world by their, control if they want it, and they can do anything they want to do. It's very different when you have children, then they have to start school. A lot of 30-somethings right now do have children. They've now become school teachers, and how do they work and do that? I mean,
gosh, I don't know.
I can't imagine. I mean, you have Alfie, and you have Sushi, your bird, and I mean, even you've brought your bird Sushi into the office, which is hysterical. And I like him, but he's, I love birds. But you've got to be available for that, right?
Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to actually do my job and focus on what somebody else is doing.
We have several clients that have been on that place in their life right now where it's like, oh my gosh, what do you do? Well, Zoom has become a big factor, or online meetings and things like that, which is helpful, but you can't do it all, right?
No,
yeah.
you can't. I think whether you have kids or are still trying to figure out what you want to do for a living, I think the first step is really just deciding what are those goals, what is most important. Because we see it all the time. If you don't know what you're planning for, you're not really going to get anywhere.
No.
So it doesn't have to always be long-term retirement, but what do you want to accomplish, I think, is the most important first step.
Well, I want to kind of bring it down too, because I think one of the first steps that people make, let's say in their 20s or 30s, is, or maybe they did it in their 20s and they're learning from it in their 30s, and it's their first biggest purchase is usually somewhere around college debt, which they have no idea how that works, and buying a car.
Yeah.
And then incorporating credit cards in their life to balance their financial situation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Paying rent. If they're not so fortunate to be able to buy a home before they're 30, you know. Yeah, I mean, that lifestyle component, because everyone wants to be independent.
Right.
So going through it yourself, what would you say that were some of the best decisions you made, and maybe some of the ones to avoid?
I think one of the best decisions that we've made is not overcommitting to a mortgage or rent, and really looking at what do I have to pay for and can this fit. I think before we even buying a home, we didn't want it to be half of our income. So that's a scary place to be for me personally.
So why do you think it's a scary place for you?
Because, well, my husband works too, obviously. So just if I think it's scary because if something happens, how would we make it work with one income?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people, as I said, not getting married, so they're doing it all on one income, and just not overextending yourself, I think, is really, really important.
Can I ask you a couple questions about your relationship with money when it comes to like you and your husband? Who does the balancing of the checkbook, or who pays the bills? Who?
Oh, I do.
You do? Okay. Why is that?
Because they would never get paid on time.
And is your husband aware of that?
Yes, very much so.
So he's happy that you take that on.
He might pay the actual bill, but it's me reminding him every day. Did you set this up yet? Did you do it? Did you set it up on auto pay?
So does that give you something that's more peace of mind? Was it something you learned from family? How did that work?
To be the one in control. Well, when we first
Hey, you work
married,
with me every day. You help control my world every day, not paying bills, but I mean with our clients. So
Yes.
I totally get it. You have a qualification for it,
when,
for sure.
When I think when we first got married, I tried to let him take care of most of it. He was working more than I was. I just graduated. But turns out things weren't getting paid, so I took over.
Now, well, since you took over, so when he wants to spend money on something, how does it work? Do you have everything in one joint account, or do you have separate accounts?
We do. No, we keep everything joint. I've tried it a couple different ways, so I'll just share what works for us.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a joint account. We have all joint accounts, but we have everything that has to get paid every month in one account. So all the bills, anything I know is coming up, all goes to that one account. And then we kind of give ourselves a weekly allowance.
Okay.
And that goes into a separate account. And we've tried, taking cash out, and you get cash and I get cash, and we never had it when we wanted it, and somebody was always going over. So we just go weekly. We have a weekly budget that we have for all of the things we want to do.
Okay.
Usually going out to eat, or even the groceries and the gas. And so that's just how we kind of keep things, making sure we have what we need to pay what we need to, and then what savings is separate. It all comes from, like, I consider the savings portion part of our bills and what we have to pay for. So
Okay.
What's left over is a weekly allowance we kind of give ourselves.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I know you like to shop, so.
I do.
But you're always shopping for a deal. I
That's
do
right.
know that about you. I know I showed you a pair of shoes once, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, those are too much. That's out of my budget." So I said, "Okay," but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah. So yeah, my shopping has to come out of our weekly leftover.
That's so funny. Well, Katie, I'm glad that you're here. You're a co-host with me every day, and when we have the privilege to work with the people that we do, but also, I mean, Katie has a big voice. She's got incredible recommendations. She's doing things with us every single day that are just building the practice. But we're also wanting to be more aware. We want to have a lot more awareness out there and people to be knowledgeable about what their options are. Don't think that you're alone, whether you're 20, whether you're 30, whether you're 40, 50, 60, 80, 90. Okay, I know I left some numbers out there, but it doesn't matter, because what's important to you today is how we help navigate through that financial process about making the best decisions with your money. But we also have to understand where money decisions come from. And money decisions come from probably something that's very deep inside us, that maybe it came from mom and dad, maybe it came from grandma and grandpa or aunts and uncles, something like this. But there's certain influences that we have that make us who we are. And so don't ever feel embarrassed that you need to get financial education. If anything, congratulate yourself, because getting financial education so that you make the right decisions from the beginning, so you're not constantly having to unwind and undo or lose lots of money. There's no reason that you should have to lose lots of money. But also kind of figure out what your goals are, right? Your goals, what your dreams are, specific to you and your partner, you and your spouse, you and your children, whatever it might be in your demographic, or you and your dog and cat. I mean, it doesn't matter, but what are your goals? Because do you want something to show for it in the future, or do you just want to say, I'm just going to work for the rest of my life? I mean, I can tell you this, I've never met anyone, which you can attest to this too, that wants to work for the rest of their life and have nothing to show for it. People don't want to have to pay more taxes than they need to. Why do we always, get so anxiety driven when it comes to tax season and getting our taxes done? Oh my gosh, I've got to do it. Oh, this is an extension. I mean, it's a whole other ball of wax. But when you buy your home, buy it the right way. Get some financial education, get some help, get some coaching, because this is one of the biggest decisions of your life. If you still have student loans out there and they're eating you alive, or you have, a car loan that you got into incredibly high interest rates because maybe you got out of control with your credit cards, now's the time to say, I'm going to pause and I'm going to figure it all out, and I want to look at it all at once. But it takes courage to do that. And so I don't know if you want to end on another note, but I think that that's a pretty powerful message that we're saying and talking about today.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, stay tuned. We'll be checking out here in just a few seconds. And, if you have questions or you're feeling like you're touched by this message, please reach out to us at 619-640-2622. You can ask for Katie if you like. You can ask anyone on our team, and they'll make sure that you're taken really well care of. But you're the most important thing in your life. So pay it forward, pay yourself. But how do you pay yourself, and how do you do it? You have to have systems and procedures. I mean, I think that's a lot of what you can attest to as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ways to Love Your Money. We are just checking out here. Katie's been my co-host today. It's been great. We do have a question from the audience, so we're going to have our team kind of call it out to us, and I think Katie's going to take this one today.
So our question is, where can I learn about money and finances if my parents never taught me much, or I don't want to follow in their footsteps? That is such a great question. I would definitely recommend give us a call. We'd love to send you a copy of Wealth by Design. It is going to give you just a little roadmap of things to think about and how the planning process can work for you and get you off on the right track.
That's great. I mean, I think that's really a powerful start, because when was the last time you ever took or picked up a financial education book? This book is so easy to read. It's about 45 minutes to read it. But if you tell me, which people tell me all the time, I'm just so busy, just get it on audiobook. You can go to Amazon. You can go to elizabethdawson.com if you want. There's a link to take you there, and usually the audiobook is for free. So I think it's a great first step, and you're going to have questions. Respect yourself. Don't disrespect yourself. Respect yourself, that you deserve this financial education, and we're here to help you. We're here to help you. We've got a team here that's different ages that's here to help, as well as many other people on our team as well. But I just want to encourage you, take that first step, get educated, then start making some better sound financial decisions on good advice. So with that said, it's been another great show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's been great to have Katie on the show for Wealth by Design. We're going to be back next week with another show, another episode, and we would love for you to just leave some comments down below or questions yourself that you would like us to actually talk about on the show. So we'll have Katie back more often than not as well. It's a pleasure to have her here, and thanks again. And stay tuned. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye. The information provided in this show is for informational and educational purposes only. This show is not investment advice, nor is it intended to address the financial needs of any particular viewer. The opinions expressed on this show are not intended to be an endorsement of any particular investment strategy or service of any other kind. You must make an independent decision regarding investments or strategies mentioned throughout the show. Before acting on information in this show, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular situation and strongly consider seeking advice from a financial advisor.